Very early on at the start of the coronavirus pandemic, we didn't know what to expect. We were advised that we can't save everyone's life, but by flattening the curve through social distancing and quarantines and shutdowns, we would actually reduce the stress on the hospital system and save some lives. Now we've done that. And the amount of people who have lost their lives, while it's very high, is much, much lower than we thought. And now we're learning that 1 in 4 Americans may go hungry due to food supply disruption, due to food shortages, that 130 million people in this world may starve. Yet we're still getting this tribalist, we must remain locked down forever mentality. People are now going on Twitter and saying, we can't reopen because people might die. Well, we always knew that would happen. They're saying a second wave may hit. Well, we always knew that would happen. If you let them, they will keep everything locked down forever, no matter what the science tells them, no matter what the economists are saying, no matter what happens with the food supply, no matter how many emergency orders, no matter what Trump does, it will be wrong. Bill de Blasio says New York won't completely reopen until September, despite declining deaths and hospitalization rates. That's right. We know starvation is a real issue. We know people's jobs are gone permanently. But Bill de Blasio is saying, well, but we're not going to reopen anyway till September, even though the death rate's going down. Given the opportunity, for whatever reason, they're not going to change course. They simultaneously argue that the people who want to reopen the economy are against science. When Elon Musk came out and said we need to reopen things, it doesn't make sense, they started going crazy on Reddit saying, wow, he's so anti-science. But none of these people are reading the science. This is one of the scariest things I've seen. People who claim to represent facts that they've never looked for, never researched, and they have no idea what they're talking about. So meanwhile, they walk around saying science is the only true path, and they haven't read any of these articles. They haven't heeded any of the warnings from the experts, but they're acting like they did for tribal reasons. And that's truly scary, because I'll say it again. Given the opportunity, these people will not reopen things. Everything you're experiencing now will just be the way it is. This is how things are now. That's it. No one's going to want to reopen, no amount of protests. But I will tell you what, as much as we're seeing all of these people call for these shutdowns to remain in effect, regular people just don't care. So perhaps it won't matter entirely what they do, so long as regular people just keep defying these orders. The Daily Mail reports, Mayor Bill de Blasio said on Monday night that he does not anticipate New York City fully reopening until September, despite declining hospitalization rates and deaths. The city is on lockdown along with the rest of the state until May 15th at least, after which point it must meet 7 requirements set up by Governor Andrew Cuomo before it can reopen. New York City currently meets 3 of the 4 criteria. It is lacking in free hospital beds and does not yet have the number of contact tracers, people to track down everyone who has come into contact with new COVID-19 cases, that Cuomo is insisting on hiring before it can reopen. Now, look, I understand New York was hit the hardest, but you've got a city of millions of people, right? So yes, I understand. If people stop social distancing, perhaps things could get bad. The problem is nobody cares. Right now, we're being told that white privilege is on full display as people overcrowd New York City parks. So here's the point I want to bring up here about the disparity in what's happening with the lockdown. First, it's hard to know if the lockdown is actually popular or unpopular. Just because we're seeing all of these people in parks doesn't mean it represents the majority of people. But when you look to what New York has been doing, targeting the Jewish community, targeting the black community, and then leaving these people to just romp around in the park, it makes you wonder what their real motive is. And the other issue is that across the country, there is no one-size-fits-all policy. It doesn't make sense the media was calling for South Dakota to lock down when South Dakota is nowhere near as densely populated as a state like New York. And even weeks after they claimed it was the hotspot, what happens? South Dakota still has some of the least amount of hospitalizations for COVID-19. But let's talk about the real disparity in what's happening with these lockdowns. In one place, church members get $500 tickets for sitting in their vehicles with windows closed. But in another place, Oregon, strip clubs are offering drive-through and delivery entertainment. Oregon is more densely populated than Mississippi. So this is the big problem. The data is in, and we have to actually follow the science and plan for how we reopen. Instead, for tribal reasons, for whatever reason, the media tries to paint a picture of conservatives being morons, of people being stupid. You go on social media and they'll say we must remain locked down because the second wave is coming. But they're ignoring all of the data and they're ignoring the hypocrisy and the double standards. Come on, I need you to justify why you're not out complaining in all of the media about drive-through strip clubs, but you're calling the churchgoers morons. That I truly don't understand. We're seeing more data that a potentially deadly second wave is coming. And this is what they are going to use. It's what they're literally using now to justify why they will not be reopening. I don't know why. I can only assume it's for tribalist reasons. They don't like Trump. Conservatives are protesting. The media won't call out regular people going to the park. Some of them are getting tickets, and thus a narrative is emerging that the only people who want things reopened are Trump-supporting conservatives, which is just not the case. Thus, we're going to end up seeing them cite stories like this and keep things locked down permanently, damaging people's lives. I'd imagine at a certain point, people are going to say enough and actually just come out and do whatever they want. Well, back over at the story about New York and Bill de Blasio, they say, no one from the mayor's office nor the governor's office would provide numbers for how many had been hired so far when asked repeatedly by dailymail.com on Monday and Tuesday in reference to the contact tracers. Then the city can start to reopen in phases, with restaurants and entertainment services among the last industries to come back to life. In an interview on Monday night with Inside City Hall, de Blasio said that while there will be a softening of restrictions between now and September, he thinks it is a safe bet for a fuller reopening. Quote, I believe right now we're on a good track for the thing I'm focused on the most, which is getting us up and running and as much normal as we can be by the beginning of September when school begins. I want to see school come back strong. I want to see us do the work over the next few months to get to that point. It's also a natural time when people are coming back from the summer, sort of have everything get into high gear. Now I think in the meantime, we'll be able to start reducing restrictions and opening up certain types of businesses in certain ways. What's being missed here is that first, they told us it was going to be, mid-April, end of April, mid-May, end of May, June, and they keep pushing it back. Now they're saying, well, we won't fully reopen till September. Mind you, many businesses are done for good. They will never come back no matter what. That is the most important piece missing from what they're saying. When they tell you they will eventually reopen things, what they're not telling you is that the longer they stay closed, they won't need to reopen anything because these businesses literally will not be able to be reopened. We're also seeing a complete erosion of civil rights. And for whatever reason, a lot of people completely on board with it. This story right here actually shocked me. Federal judge rules Illinois stay-at-home order constitutional. I couldn't believe it. There were churchgoers were angry and churches that their right to worship and peaceably assemble was being infringed upon. And even though the governor said, yes, worship is essential, you don't need to do it in person, apparently a judge has agreed. So now we're actually seeing them erode the Constitution right in front of our faces in real time, with no real plan to reopen things, with actually a plan to destroy things so they can never be reopened. You know what? I'll tell you what, man. I think this is all going to help Donald Trump. I really do. Trump's been the cheerleader for reopening. Trump's been the one going on TV saying, we got to get the economy going. The numbers were wrong. And they're the ones coming out, Illinois Democrats, these judges saying, nope, we got to keep things closed. What do you see in New York? What do you see in Miami? Check this out. In Miami Beach closes park just 5 days after reopening as nearly 8,000 people break face mask and distance rules because they don't care, because they don't believe you, because you have done nothing to gain their trust, and they're just going out and doing their thing. Of course, what we're seeing here is that they're closing parks again. Reopen it, people come out to do their thing, they close it down, because given the opportunity, they'll just keep doing it. It feels to me like what we're seeing with these rulings, with worship, with the First Amendment, with the re-lockdowns, it's kind of testing our boundaries. It's what creepy people do. They want to see what they can get away with. So now they're literally coming after your rights, and major media outlets and people, mostly on the left, are actually in agreeing with the violation of our rights and the lockdown, and things are just consistently getting worse. When people go out to protest, they get smeared and berated and belittled. And then in a lawsuit, let me read you the story. Illinois says it's constitutional. This I can't imagine. I couldn't imagine this have actually coming out. I couldn't imagine this actually happening. I'd imagine it's unconstitutional. So perhaps there's going to be an appellate court or the next high court, whatever, to overturn this. But WGEM says, on the same day, Beloved Church in Lena held a service with more than 100 people defying Governor J.B. Pritzker's stay-at-home order. A U.S. district judge rules the order constitutional. Beloved Church and its pastor, Stephen Castle, filed the federal complaint Thursday. The lawsuit claimed the state and other local authorities have intentionally denigrated Illinois churches and pastors and people of faith by relegating them to second-class citizenship. But a ruling from U.S. District Judge John Z. Lee says the state's stay-at-home order is constitutional. Lee denied the motion for a temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction. The 37-page ruling cited the governor's new order, which recognized free exercise of religion as an essential activity. That adjustment was made on April 30th by the Pritzker administration, the same day the lawsuit was filed. Castle disagrees and says people need to be together to worship. For the last 4 weeks, we have been doing it the way other churches have been doing it, and you cannot minister to a person's heart and provide for their spiritual needs and the needs of their soul by being electronically distanced. You just can't do it. The church has not received a citation for Sunday service. According to Lena Village President Dennis Bergman, he did say the church could still be cited in the future. The church says it does plan on having another in-person service, though it did not say if it was planned for this Sunday. When asked on Monday if he will urge authorities to step in and do something more than just disperse crowds, Governor Pritzker said people can be jailed for it, but suggested that not be the first course of action. It's already happened. We've seen people arrested for protesting. They're legally allowed to protest. Now, to be fair, in some of these cases where people are arrested, it's the same as any other protest. A cop says, you must disperse. They're going to say something like, this is an unlawful gathering, and then start making arrests to, people they view to be more egregiously acting, I suppose. But of course, many of these arrests, in my experience, have been, dubious. In one instance, back in 2011, I filmed a photographer who was standing on the sidewalk getting arrested, and the police lied on the police report to do so. Now you're seeing people come out and protest saying they want things reopened, and you're going to get more dubious or questionable arrests. But it's not going to stop. I'll tell you what. I don't want to get conspiratorial, but I will say with the partisan nature of how these lockdowns are being just perpetually demanded or enforced, it seems like, based on the rhetoric we've heard about mail-in voting, that's a huge goal for many of these people on the left. Whether it's intentional or not, there's an opportunity for Democrats and people on the left to exploit this, to make it so people have to mail-in vote in order to actually vote, and thus they will get a better result. Many of these younger Democrats don't care to vote. Many Democrats don't care to vote. But you send the ballot to them, put it in front of their face, and they'll probably just check whatever box they're told to check, increasing Democrat turnout. It's a way they can exploit and change the rules in order to win. Now, of course, I think there are people who have legitimate concerns about what's happening with the pandemic, and thus there's a real argument about whether or not we should reopen. But it does feel like we're being duped. They said to us, we're going to lock things down. Trust us. It's just to flatten the curve. And everybody got on board saying, we can do this. We're in this together. We have flattened the curve. The mortality rate is substantially lower. Many new studies have come out. The science says the mortality rate is lower. Now, we still risk a lot of people losing their lives, but we've flattened the curve. We've done way better than we ever thought we would. Only a few hospitals in certain hotspots reached maximum capacity and were overflowing. And it is tragic. It is scary. So I'm glad we've done well. In which case, you'd imagine it's time to reopen things. Apparently not. Even when they reopen beaches, they then shut it down again because people aren't behaving in the way they want. But the mortality rate is substantially lower. So what do you expect people to do? I don't think they're going to come with an argument to reopen things. And I think the reason is that Donald Trump has said we need to do it. They're ignoring the data. They're ignoring the economic result. They're ignoring the food shortages. They're going on Twitter and saying things like, you are going to let people die. They're repeating the same lines without doing any research. So what do? Here's what I'll ask you in the comments. How do you convince someone who refuses to do the research, who refuses to read the science, who simultaneously claims science is on their side? How do you convince them? And what do you do when they're risking our lives because of their stupidity? It's truly a scary thing. Confident ignorance. And that's what we're dealing with. There are people who are saying they know better. They're smarter than you. We got to close these parks down. We got to remain closed till September. We can't reopen because we don't want to risk any lives. Meanwhile, what's happening around them? Food shortages, starvation, international crisis, trade lines are being disrupted. Certain countries are hoarding food. Yeah, it's getting really bad. And the UN is warning us of mass starvation. Where are they? And why aren't they reading about this? They're so confident. It's a weird phenomenon because when I was growing up, what I'm seeing of the left was something that was more likely to occur on the right. Or at least that was the perception. I can say at least. Now we're dealing with these blue checky journalists on Twitter saying things like, if you're one of these people who wants to reopen the economy, unfollow me now because you're too stupid and I can't deal with it. Are you kidding? You're shutting out any real conversation about the ramifications of what we've done with this shutdown. You're calling protesters bigots and racists, but you're ignoring people in Miami and New York. That's how clueless they are. They truly have no idea what's going on around them, and thus they're trapped in this bubble world. What do we do when these people are the ones standing in the way of us saving lives? What do we do when these people are the ones standing in the way of us to get things going again? And what do we do when these people are saying, we'll just do a UBI while the price of food continues to increase, the availability of food continues to decrease, and people are dying anyway? There's a real risk here. A bunch of dumb people on Twitter, I guess. But I suppose the real challenge in anything is that everybody thinks they know. Everyone thinks they're smarter. I guess the big problem we're facing is that these people have dominated the journalism industry. They're a clique. It's a bubble. It's a culture where they all just talk to each other. I mean, maybe you've seen the Pulitzer Awards came out, the Pulitzer Prize. What we see with this is just, I'm going to avoid adult language. It's a circle of people patting each other on the back. None of them have done real research. They're plugging their ears to any criticism, and they're all just shaking each other's hands, gloating in how smart they are, how smarter they are than everyone else. Meanwhile, they're ignoring the data and the research, putting people's lives at risk, and advocating for what's going to be the most devastating thing to our country and potentially the world. I don't know how you get over that. I really, really don't. Italy is apparently bracing for a second wave, and I totally understand that. They're saying that it could get substantially worse. They say if there was a 40% increase in mobility, there could be more than 23,000 extra deaths in just 8 weeks. At a certain point, what do? Do you not ever ride in a car because car accidents happen? Do you never fly in a plane because plane crashes happen? If we know the risk of staying locked down is on par with or getting worse than the coronavirus, then perhaps the only thing we can do is really open up. But unfortunately, a bunch of confident, arrogant, ignorant individuals are claiming they're smarter than us and standing in front of us while people start to go hungry, food shortages erupt, and nothing you do is going to solve this anyway. So I guess I'll leave it there, man. I don't know. It's a bit all over the place, but I got to be honest. I've just seen story after story of regular people defying these orders, getting no criticism, a double standard from the media, and these same people who are calling the Trump supporters bigots and morons are ignoring the people in their own towns, and these people who are claiming that the Trump supporters are the bigots and the morons aren't even doing any research. What if people have been protesting? Here's what they'll highlight. A guy in a protest holding a sign that says, I need a haircut. Yeah, that guy's an idiot. But someone else will hold a sign saying facts over fear. There'll be people holding signs saying we risk starvation, things like this. And the media ignores it because it doesn't fit their tribal little bubble. So while these New York journalists and these urban journalists are sitting in their ivory tower, patting each other on the back, ignoring the fact that's the people in their own town. In fact, many of these same journalists are probably the ones going to the park in the first place. They're going to tell us to risk our lives because they're smarter. So long as our news industry is completely corrupted by morons who don't do research, we are in serious trouble. And I don't know. It's just a rant because I don't know what the solution is. All I know is things will get worse. I got another segment coming up for you. The next segment will be at youtube.com/Timcast. I'm going to stop right now because people don't actually go to the URL. I've been getting a ton of messages from people saying, but this is Timcast. No, this is Timcast News. And for some reason, YouTube did this. I don't know why, but the channel you are listening to right now is not youtube.com/Timcast. That is a different channel from this one. It is. So go to your search bar, type in youtube.com/Timcast, and lo and behold, it's a totally different channel where I produce content every day. And I don't blame you for not getting it because YouTube's the one who did this. So I'll just leave it there. Check it out. The next segment will be at 4 p.m. on that channel, and I will see you all there.